Hey everybody, this is Professor Lilly, and I just want to go over and introduce you to digital tools. And I actually am teaching two sections. So if you see up here, right now I'm in CM202-01 and 02. So it's a combined Moodle page for the two sections. So if you're in 02, you might still see a Moodle course page that just says 202-002, and when you go to it, there's pretty much no content on it. So don't use that one. Use this combined one, and it just makes it so that I don't forget I add something on one of the Moodle sites and then forget to do the other one. There are a few things that we'll do where I group you, like when we do the midterm exam, and we schedule a time, then I'll group you with your section. But other than that, since you're mostly not going to be working together, it doesn't really matter, and it makes it a lot more efficient for me to have the combined one. So just make sure you're using this one for everybody in the course. Before I go over the Moodle course or the Moodle site that I did a lot of editing and revising for this semester, let me just talk general about the course, digital tools. So I actually designed this course with Dr. Biswas a few years ago, and it was part of a redesign of the whole communication curriculum, and mostly that redesign came at the front end, so introductory courses, and we wanted to make sure all students in the major had some basic digital tool production knowledge, so that even if you, for example, were going to focus on advertising or public relations, when you get to your capstone at the end, you have to have some basic understanding of Photoshop, and also by having this class early on, if you're in like a 300 level class and the professor wants you to make a video or gets that as an option, or asks you to be in a group that you create an advertisement, that you don't shy away from participating fully in those, because you will have some basic experience already with the applications that you would need to be able to do those type of assignments. So that's what this course is all about. So it says here, we did used to teach it as a hybrid course, meaning that we did spend less time in the classroom. The classroom would have been mostly kind of lab time, and students spent a lot of time in the course online by themselves, looking at tutorials and working with the applications. So the fact that we converted it, or like everyone else, we're doing this all online, isn't too much of a challenge. And I'll mention later on the one way, which is it is a challenge, in how how we've accommodated for that. And basically, what we're looking at doing is giving you some experience in most of the Creative Cloud apps, such as InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator. We won't be using the Creative Cloud video app Premiere, because that's kind of like a higher, more advanced technology, but we will be doing basic video editing and basic audio editing. And then we're going to take all the stuff that you have created in the Creative Cloud apps, and we're going to put it on a web page. You're going to create your own web page at the end using WordPress, which is a popular content management system. And it's going to be a portfolio site that you're going to be able to come back and revise and add to throughout your time at Loyola. And we probably won't even delete it until you've been gone for a year or two, so that you can use it to get internships and jobs. And I'll get to the different modules. In Moodle, I've stopped using the module names just because they're confusing. Are we in module 4 or module 2? And just saying, okay, we're in audio week, or we're in video week, or we're in Photoshop week, as you'll see when you look at the Moodle site. In terms of grading, so half of the grade is the activities that you're going to do in these different modules. For each one, you're gonna have like a deliverable, an activity, something you have to produce. You're gonna turn that in. That's gonna be graded. There's gonna be some reading and tutorials and like important terms in the first half of the semester that will be tested in the midterm exam. So I opted just to do one big midterm instead of having weekly quizzes. So you want to make sure you when you do the weekly reading and tutorials, just make sure you take some notes. And I'll give a study guide for the exam too. And then at the end, you'll have a final portfolio, so you'll be revising your website, adding to it, and then there'll be a little final exam that'll be mostly reflective. So it'll be an exam that, as long as you follow the guidelines and give feedback and turn a few things in, then it should be an easy A for most people. It's not going to be a kind of multiple choice, facts-based like the midterm exam is. Let's see. Okay, so maybe we'll go get out of here and we'll go back to, I'm going to cover, what we're going to be doing in terms of using Photoshop and Design and Illustrator when I will show you the wonderful Moodle page. So let's start at the top here. So by far the easiest way or best way, most efficient way to communicate with me is through email. And you can expect an email from me within a day, and sometimes a reply, and it will usually be like, sometimes it'll be just in a few minutes or an hour. And it just might be like in the evening when I'm dealing with my kids and stuff like that. Maybe it might take a little bit longer. You can, I would, if you want to talk to me on the phone, I would email me first, or if you're gonna, this is my mobile phone number, or text me first, because I'm sure, like a lot of you, I get tons of spam phone calls, and so I just don't answer the phone unless it's I recognize the number. So I wouldn't recognize your number, so I would think you're a spammer unless you text me first and say, hey, this is so and so from class, and can you call me or something like that. We could also arrange for a personal Zoom meeting. Make sure you look through the syllabus. These, I wouldn't, in terms of apps to install for the first week, you don't necessarily, some of the, this is like a generic for the whole class, and so I would always wait for me to say this is what you need to do. For example, in week 2, we're going to be doing, make sure you know how to use the basic cloud app or cloud storage options. And so I'll tell you, what you need to do with that. And some of these have changed over the years. Like we still use Adobe Clip, but we don't use SoundCloud anymore. Everybody is going to be eventually using YouTube. Everybody definitely needs to be able to use the Creative Cloud apps. So you're going to be using Photoshop, Illustrator, in InDesign, and I don't think Clip. I think Clip is a separate download, even though it's by Adobe. But so you definitely need to go through, click here, and go through OTAs and make sure you have that the Creative Cloud apps access through your computers, because you're going to be using those by week 3. Okay, so I mentioned it before. So the one tricky thing with this class as online only is the fact that if you can't figure out how to do something on an app, or you're struggling, now the tutorials for each one of the weeks, each one of the modules are very specific, and I give you several different tutorials, and pretty much anything you can't figure out to do, you can Google it and you can find a video on it on YouTube. I used to be a professional web developer, and so I'm a little bit more, like, my knowledge base for web design is able to teach Web 1 and Web 2, and I haven't taught those in a while, but those back when I was doing it in the mid and late 90s, there were no manuals. There usually weren't people to tell you what to do. Everything you had to do is to find experts or steal someone's code, and it was a very open kind of sharing type culture, and that's how you would learn to do something. So to say, look, you got to figure out it yourself is the way you do it with a lot of computer science stuff, coding, a lot of design stuff. Now, you do have access to a professor, right? So normally, if you were stumped, then in class you would say, "Hey," we would most of the time in class would be for people to raise their hands and show me what you're doing, get some feedback from me. But also, if you can't figure something out, then I'm that resource. Not the first resource. Try to figure it out on your own or ask a friend. But if you can't, I'm definitely here for that as well. So what we're going to do for that is instead of using, now we have the time that the course, the two sections were allotted to for, and so we can use that for what I call the virtual computer lab, okay? And I've decided that the base time for the virtual computer lab to be open will be from on Tuesday and Thursday, so or normal days, from 11 to 1. And if there's still people, students who are in the computer lab, the Zoom lab is what I'll call it, at 1 o'clock, then we can certainly go longer than 1. So I want and expect everyone is required to attend one Zoom lab a week. So you don't have to come Tuesday and Thursday. It's totally up to you and when you show up. And I will be taking little notes just to make sure that no one's kind of skipping out. And you don't have to attend the whole time. I mean, to be honest, for each week I'll do a little bit of a demo most weeks just to show you how to do something. Now, usually I would have already demoed this on my weekly video. So not every week, but most weeks I'll be putting out a video just like this one on Sunday or Monday. I'll email it to you and I will put it on Moodle. And then that will tell you, here's what you need to do. And so you can always refer to that video, here's what you need to do. And as you look through Moodle, there are also tons of guidelines that are in text too. So, I mean, there's a little bit of redundancy between what I'm going to say in the videos. And the videos I'm going to be going over Moodle and giving orientation. So those are always there. So the Zoom labs are really for people to ask questions and for you to be able to listen. So another student is asking a question, and maybe it's a question that had not occurred to you, or you want to know the answer to, then you just listen in. So you don't necessarily have to ask a question. You don't have to actively, I mean, you have to participate, but I expect that when you're doing the Zoom lab, you should have your laptop and you should be working on the assignments just to see if you have any question at that time. So I think that's the best use of the time for you, is to come with questions already written down if you have any, or just working on some of the assignments to see if you need any help with anything. So, and in Zoom, I'll use the pin so that if someone has a question and they want to show something, like I'm trying to figure out how to do this in Photoshop, or can I get your feedback on the assignment, and then you can show me in Photoshop or Illustrator what you're doing, and I can give you kind of more design type feedback. And then I can also demo how to do things by sharing my screen. So we'll kind of do a lot by sharing my screen or a different student's screen to kind of see what they're doing. And that's basically what it will be about. So if you don't really have any questions and you're pretty sure you understand everything and you listen in to Zoom for like 15 or 20 minutes and then you go, that's fine. You don't have to be in there the whole time. However, if you're struggling, then by all means come to both Tuesday and Thursday to kind of get the most out of that time. All right, so that's basically how we're going to do it. If once things get going, I do have an exemption. So if you're really cruising along this course and you're rocking with the tutorials and those are working really well for you, and you're getting A's, and you don't really have any confusion, then you can like send me a quick email and say, look, I'm getting A's. Or else I will just recognize that you're getting A's and you would be exempt from those later Zoom meetings. For the tutorials, and this is what I found previously in the class, some students learn really well from the lynda.com tutorials and the Adobe tutorials that there's links to in all the different weeks, and other students learn better from someone kind of sitting next to them and showing them how to do it. And so, it's maybe you already know what kind of learner you are. But so the Zoom is especially better for those students who it's hard, they don't learn as well through the tutorials and they need someone to show them. Remember that my weekly videos will also have demos. And if you have a friend, if you're living with someone or have a friend who you can Zoom with who has more expertise, it's fine for you to get help from another person other than me or from someone in the class. The only thing they can't do is they can't actually do assignment for you. So if you, but if you need to, struggling with using Photoshop or doing a video or whatever, and you just want them to ask them, how do you do this, that's fine with me. That's how everyone learns in pretty much every aspect of life, right? Okay, so that's the virtual Zoom lab. There might be a week or two where we don't have one, but I'll let you know. So just in general, we'll assume that there will be one. And I think do I have my link there? Yeah, so this is my personal Zoom link. So I will chime in. I'll be there at 11 o'clock every Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, so I'm going to do week 1 last. I'm not going to hit up all these weeks, but let's talk about week 2. That's not this week, but next week. We're just gonna go over some general issues, things that you need to know about getting a good photo and editing photos, and using cloud storage, which you're going to use throughout the semester and in lots of other classes. So for some of you, this might be a bit of a breeze. We used to do 2 weeks of this, and now I just do 1 week of this because it's not rocket science. So we want to get into what I call the graphics module. And so the graphics module, technically, it lasts 3.5 weeks. And let me pause this real quick. Okay, sorry about that. My daughter had a question, so I paused the recording. Okay, so in the for this one, I have this one tab here that's not really a week. It's just general resources, and I will go over those when I do my video overview of that module and what you're going to be using and how. And then we'll have 1 week each for Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. And most of that work will be put into in the InDesign project, which is a creative resume. And basically that's kind of a creative take on a standard business resume. Let me see if I have some examples here. And these are kind of more typical for people who are applying for kind of design type jobs, but you can kind of see the variety. And these also are using graphics that are made in the Photoshop and Illustrator modules. So, for example, I'm trying to find this student made the little mouse icon here, and she made her own app icons, and this pencil icon, she made those in Illustrator, and the same, and then and all these students did the kind of photo work of their profile photo modification in or preparation in Photoshop. And now, I mean, one thing to mention is that there's going to be, we're doing critiques and we're looking at each other's work. There's going to be a kind of wide variety of previous experience the students in this course have had. So this student, Kelly, already had a fair amount of Photoshop, or rather Illustrator experience, and she made her own kind of swatches and backgrounds here. She did kind of a lot of kind of photo or watercolor type effects, and so she was already a little bit more advanced. So I kind of encouraged her to take some of her skills to the next level. But other students, but if you're not one of those students who already has experience and Your knowledge base is pretty basic. I mean, don't be ashamed. The whole idea is to learn these applications and also, but at the same time, to kind of have an excuse to push your creativity. This student had took some photographs and she modified them in Photoshop and then put them into her creative resume. So anyway, so all the first 2 weeks of Photoshop and InDesign, I mean Photoshop and Illustrator, those those products get pushed into the creative resume, which is the final project for InDesign, which is for print publication design. So then after that, we have a whole week that's for the midterm exam, and the InDesign, 1 week is not quite long enough for InDesign because we need to teach you how to use it, and then you're actually going to produce your creative resume. So that'll probably actually be due during this midterm exam week. And so there won't really be much going on that week except turning in the InDesign creative resume and then doing the kind of multiple choice type exam for the midterm. And then we will get into starting your website, and we'll have a few weeks of learning how to place content and finding different themes. Theme is kind of like a kind of set aspects of a template, like a look and feel. And I've pulled up 3 websites of students from who have taken the course with me before. And so all of the, you can see here, he has his resume in here and graphics. So all of the stuff that you're creating in these earlier modules are going to be kind of like the content. So don't worry about, oh, I don't know what I'm going to put on my portfolio website. Well, you're going to be creating a lot of the content in the earlier modules. You can add other things that aren't necessarily part of this class, like photography, samples of your writing. Let's say you wrote for a student newspaper, or you've written poems, or you have an academic paper or 2 that you're really proud of, then you can add that content as well. You'll be putting your videos in here. You're going to get have a chance to have a fair amount of creativity. At the end, the final project is to add even more content to your website. And so at that point, we're going to be working with embedded widgets. Like here's like a social media widget for Instagram, and here's a widget that pulls in content from Twitter. And that'll be up to you to decide. Like you don't necessarily have. Let's say you don't have a Twitter feed, or you have a or an Instagram feed that's private, so that wouldn't be able to be pulled into here. And maybe there's reasons why you don't want your private Instagram or Facebook account content on your portfolio. Well, that's fine. You could, like for example, you could be pulling content from like someone who you follow in an industry that you're interested in, or something like that, as long as it's appropriate. And then here's just another student's portfolio website. So these portfolio websites, the portfolios WordPress server that we have is kind of expensive. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of student websites, and it costs a lot of money. So we're going to ask everybody to pay a small fee, and I'll tell you how to do that. I think the price that we set was, I think it was $20. It's not more than that. There's no textbook fees or anything like that, so that's the only fee associated with this. And the good news for that is that you're going to set up your website in this class, and then you're going to have access to that. It's going to be there, and you're going to know how to log into it all the way through your senior year and beyond. So you can use it to keep using it, keep adding content as you take other courses, and use it to put on your resume, your portfolio website, address for applying for internships, and then applying for jobs. So you're going to have it. And it's going to, I'm sure by the time you're seniors, they're going to look stellar. Let's see, let's go back. And what we'll do after you set it up and you have your basic website, you have some content on there, we're going to do a week on doing basic audio interviews and editing it. And then the way you're going to give it to me to grade it is you're going to put it on your website. So that's why we do the website first. is so you have a place to put some of this content for me to grade it. And then the same thing with the video. You'll be doing some, and I'm not going to show those now. As we get closer, then I'll show you some examples of what students have done. But we're talking basic, like 2-minute videos with some interviews on a particular topic, and some different sort of basic editing. And then when there's Adobe Spark is a kind of an up and coming website technology. It's a way to make a really simple, good looking kind of narrative storytelling website that has its own URL. And it's just a technology that's up and coming, and we decided to include it in the curriculum. So you're going to create one of those. I'll show you what they look like. And over Thanksgiving, and so most of you probably will be using the theme of, what does my family do for Thanksgiving? But it could be another theme, another topic. We'll talk about that. And then after you come back, or after we, I guess, virtually come back from Thanksgiving break, then you'll be working on your final website, like revising it, adding a lot of embed type content. And then that'll be it. The final exam is mostly going to be reflective, where I'm asking you questions about what you did, and give you in 1 or 2 like short essay questions, and that'll be the end of the semester. So let me go over this video. I'm sorry, it's already longer than I wanted it to be. What do we do in this first week? So this first week is going to be kind of light. I have an assignment here for you to take some photos, and just kind of photos that will be quality enough to put on your WordPress website. And we're going to need some portfolio pictures of you. So kind of like this one that I have that someone else took of me, and maybe even more of head and shoulders type view, kind of like what we see. And the reason, let's see, I guess she doesn't use her portfolio photo there. Do any of them? One of the requirements is somewhere on your website you have to have a photo. Granted, they could have taken it off, so that's like kind of a little bit more informal. You don't want more informal than that. Let's see, what's Charlie have? So we're looking for more of a head and shoulders type shot, probably more along the lines of what we see here in these creative resumes. Like this is a typical portfolio type kind of professional photo, or it could be more of a head and shoulders type like this. So I've just given you a really simple exercise for getting those for week 1, and it's a link here. Let's see, where is it? For a short article on basically how do you get a good resume or portfolio photo. You can have someone else take your photos, or you can basically do more professional looking selfies. And then we're going to get into, in the Zoom sessions, I'm going to get into how to use Photoshop or Preview to edit those, to prepare them to go into, for example, InDesign, or to put on your WordPress site. And but it's going to be, the Zoom sessions are going to be relatively informal this first couple weeks. So I'm just going to do that demo twice. So if people come earlier, like for example, if you're in the first section and you would prefer to use that actual class time to show up at 11 o'clock, and so maybe around 11:15, I will do, let's see, I want to go up right here. Here we go. And actually, I said this week I'm going to start at 10:50, or I'm going to be there. And so I'll do a demo like around 11:15. I'll do the same demo around 12:15 just to show you. At this point, I presume no one's going to have any really like technology or computer app questions, but you might have just general questions about the class for the Zoom meetings. And then I have a bunch of readings and websites that are about the history of the web. It's just some basic information, and this is all going to be information that's going to be on the midterm exam. So I'm not going to really do much lecture. I think right before the midterm, I'll have one kind of recorded lecture where I'll go through some of these before the midterm. But since they're really for the midterm and not necessarily this stuff, at least for right now, I'm not going to lecture on them until we get closer to the midterm. But this is just kind of getting you into the whole topic of digital media and all mostly geared for the web and print publication. And then in terms of timing, most things or the weekly schedule, and this is a very much a weekly based class. I'm looking here at week 2, is on Sunday or Monday. I will release my video saying here's what we're doing this week and maybe do some demos. We have the Zoom sessions. You only have to show up at part of one of them on Tuesday and Thursday. And that's the middle of the week is for you to do the tutorials, to start getting into the activities, and then ask questions in the Zoom meetings after you kind of get into them, and then you turn in things on Sundays. So that's the general kind of flow. Is any kind of activity deliverable? For the most part, it will be due on that Sunday night, and then we get back into the next week. So that's why for each week there's a tab here in Moodle. Okay, so if you have any questions, that's all I'm going to say for now. I already talked longer than I wanted to, just because I didn't want to bore you. So yeah, make sure, obviously you're watching this video now, and I will see all of you either on Tuesday or Thursday at the virtual Zoom meeting. So take care, and I'll see you then.